I'm gonna make a video I can talk about. I probably will put this up on my philosophy major channel. But the thing is that, you know, there's so many things. I want to talk about things just for the next 5 minutes, just in general. It's probably just random stuff. Those videos, my videos on that channel don't get a lot of views, so I don't really care. My other one, however, my other channel gets up to like 77,000 views. Probably more than that. Because the counts come in slow. I'm sure I might be close to 100,000. But I was talking about belief. You know, belief in believing. You know, belief shapes your personality. It really does. Because what you believe shapes the way you are. It really does. I get to thinking, one thing about me is I question what I believe. I really do. I question my beliefs all the time. Is it true? You ask yourself, is what I'm believing true? I think you get to a point where in life it's a perpetual thing, and I think this is the issue in science all the time. You know, to me, being scientific and looking at things scientifically is really a matter of constant review, constantly reviewing everything, constantly looking over things, and asking yourself, is this true? See, I think that's the difference between religion and science, because I think with religion, you don't ask, is it true? You simply accept that it's true. And I can say that's more like instead of just simply saying religion, it's kind of like the way of a lot of things, not even some things that aren't religious. There are things you just simply accept. That's true. You know, like you don't really question, like if you're driving your car and you see the traffic light and the light turns red, you don't ask the question, is it true that the red light means stop? You know, you're not curious about it. You're not curious. But you're not dogmatic about it either. If the state legislature and the federal government all got together and passed a law saying that the red light now means go and the green light means stop, then you will adjust to that. You know, it's not an intrinsic meaning. It's a meaning that's given from the top down. Somebody in government, somebody in some position of authority determines what the rule is. And is made into a law and is put in a code. This is the official code of the government. You must stop at the red light and you must go when it's green if you can. Clear out the intersection. Don't just stay there. If you gotta pull over to the side to stop and pick your nose or something and eat a booger, you know, you just have to do that. You have to pull over to the side and do it. Or text a message or something. Those are the rules. That's what you do. That's the way things work. The rules come from the top. They come from government. They come from authority. You know, but when something is when you're looking at science, scientific rules don't come from anybody, really. You just study things. You look at how things happen. Here's the thing. You look at this rock. The first rule is that it's hard. It has some weight to it. If you release it, it'll fall. There are facts, and you write that down. These are the things you write down. And then people say, okay, now what should I expect? What should I expect? I should expect when I see this rock, if I've seen a rock for the first time, that it should be hard. Yeah, it's hard. Now, if I picked it up and it was spongy, you know, if I squeeze it and it bounce back, then I know it's not a rock. But what if it is a rock? What if it's a rock that has that property, a sponge rock? You know, it's not a sponge. It's not an organic thing. It's made of the same things every other rock. It's just the way that the structure of the rock is. It could be an unusual rock. But that, you know, I've never seen or even heard of such a rock. The other thing is that when you know, the whole gravitational thing, all these rules you can put down on paper and say, these are the things that will happen. So we say those are rules. Now, they're rules, just like rules of traffic. You know, you have to stop at the red light. We could sort of say that about a rock. A rock has to, but really, when you think about it, does it have to fall? Are we ordering it to fall? See, I think sometimes our minds can get confused at times. You know, on one level, we don't really have a confusion. We accept that. But when you start getting further and further and deeper into things, then yes, there could be confusion. Because we start wondering, are we dictating things to nature? We're telling nature what to do instead of observing and simply taking notes. This is what nature does. This is how nature acts. This is the way things happen. Well, we could do that. We could approach that in approaching things in everyday life. You know, if I'm looking at people in traffic, I notice people stop at the light when it's red and they go when it's green. So I write that down, like that's what happens. So therefore that's the rule. You stop at the red light and you go when it's green. I'm not going according to what the law says, the state legislature or the federal government or anybody else. I'm just, that's what happens. But you observe and you observe, and say you're at an intersection and the cars always stop and they go and they stop and go and stop and go. Then one time you're looking and you notice the light turns red and this one car just zip right past real fast, goes right through the light. So, wait a minute, an exception to the rule. What causes the exception to the rule? Pretend like you don't know that person was speeding or he probably was texting while driving and not paying attention to the light. You could be curious and not understand why that person went through the red, and you try to figure it out. And you observe and observe, and every so often you notice some cars do go through the red light. Sometimes they go through and get hit by another car because they weren't, But you might not notice that they weren't paying attention. You look closer and you notice. Maybe you start to record it with a camera, and you notice every time somebody's either texting or on the phone or looking at the scenery and not paying attention. Well, sometimes they're looking straight ahead, but and you can't. So you try to look for some answer as to why. If you're curious as to why are they going through that light, why these exceptions are happening, why is it most people stop? But see, if you kind of just know in a more simpler, way, you just know there are rules that are written some time ago, who knows, a long time ago in a galaxy far, far away. Somebody came over the rule, you had to stop at the red light, you had to go to green. And sometimes people go, somebody could explain it to you that sometimes people run the red light for a lot of reasons. Some of them do it deliberately. They want to get somewhere and they think they can just do it. Other people aren't paying attention. Some people see the light is about to change, but then they're going too fast to just slam on the brakes, so they just keep going on through. And you notice sometimes when they go through the red light, the police will come after them. Yeah, that's one thing you observe. That's the thing about learning things. You begin to see these patterns. You look at patterns. One thing you can just simply observe, strictly from observing and seeing the pattern and writing and noting. Others you can just learn because that's the rules. Somebody teach you the rules, and that's what happens. Sometimes you can learn rules about things in another country before you visit that country, so that when you actually see these things, it's not so strange to you. You know that when you go into a Buddhist temple, you have to take your shoes off. Maybe you never had to take your shoes off when you went to church. But here you have to take your shoes off. There's a matter of respect and everything else. So you do it. Because if you don't, everybody will look at you and then somebody will come up to you and say, "Excuse me, sir, you have to take your shoes off." So you can avoid that. Knowing the rules can sometimes tell you about something before you actually experience it, so you can deal with it ahead of time. Other times you can simply observe. It's like when I used to learn a lot about baseball. Nobody ever told me the rules, but I would observe and watch and watch. And then also at the same time when the announcers would talk about things like, what is the infield fly rule? And I was getting into baseball. I was kind of like late in my teens when I started really developing an interest in it. And then I remember going to the library and getting a book. Looking at a book, actually. And then I bought this book. I still have it somewhere around here, probably. It's a book like that thick with all the rules of baseball. I learned all kind of little detail, like the details of the infield fly rule. I bet you most people watch don't even know all the details of it, and all the details of what they have to do with the baseballs and how that works, and how the umpires have to do this and this, that, and the other thing. Or a lot of very interesting rules that you never think about until something happens, and then somebody explains it to you. It's funny because I started learning about baseball. I became a lot better at understanding the sport than most people around me. So I couldn't actually have a conversation with people who were fascinated with baseball, and they would talk. Then I started telling them, "Did you know that such and such?" And they would like, "Oh, people just turn off," because it was like I was too smart, because I knew too much. It was like they didn't want to talk about that. And when people would say things that weren't accurate, because I would watch the game, and I say, well, actually, what you said isn't true because this is what really happened and such. Because according to this rule, and such and such a thing. And if you notice when the umpire says such and such a thing, it's like people are, oh, it's funny. People actually like to have conversations where they can. It's okay to be inaccurate. It's okay to be wrong. And you don't have to think it. And then somebody like me comes around, even though I'm not like some kind of intellectual police officer. People tend to see me that way, like I'm intellectually policing them, and I'm not. And I don't care about that. And this is random, and I told you it would be random, so that's what I'm going to end it at.